Hi, everyone. My name is Andy Fernandez. I'm the Director of Product Management here at HYCU. And let's get to the point very, very quickly. I want to appreciate you all for your time and your attention today. But I want to talk about a big problem, and it's the lack of protection, the lack of recovery that we're seeing today in the world of third-party backup for critical and modern applications on AWS. And that's why the title of today's session is Protecting Modern Applications from Build to Run on AWS. What does any of that actually mean? Well, let's go back a couple of years, even 5 years ago. The majority of tier one and all production applications were running on virtual infrastructure on premise, right? Everyone had a data center, facility. Maybe you were backing it up and performing DR operations to the cloud for cost savings, but all critical applications were running on prem. Now, what we've seen is organizations already migrating, but also modernizing their applications. But these production level applications that are running in AWS look completely different from something on-prem. This is the average architecture. This is a fintech architecture for a production application running within AWS. It brings incredible scale. All of these decoupled services allow it to work efficiently, cost effectively, and essentially providing unlimited scale to the application. But when we actually look deeper here, it's a completely different world. This is no longer, hey, I have to simply manage my VMs, make sure I have a backup administrator handling this, but hey, I have to completely radically change how I take a look at this application, how I maintain it, but most importantly, how I actually protect this application. So when we look at AWS, when we look at any of the public cloud services, over 80% of the cloud services that are used, when I mean cloud services, I'm not just talking about compute, about infrastructure, about storage. I'm talking about every single service that makes up a critical application. And when you look at all of them combined, at least 80% of those are being completely unprotected by SREs and in the world of DevOps as well. Now, let's take a look at what are the categories that make up services within an application. You have your instances, maybe some form of compute, let's say, your databases and your storage. You also have a lot of containerized deployments now. And of course, you have security, identity, networking, infrastructure as code, all of these other critical management services that are also extremely important to the organization. I'll give you an example. What if somebody deletes your key rotations in KMS or a role in IAM? Or your functions in Lambda or a state in CloudFormation, what happens to your organization? What happens to the application? Although these are decoupled services, they're completely interconnected and they all hold critical configuration that makes up this application. But when you look at the world of enterprise backup, everyone's focused on protecting AWS and the other clouds the same as they did on premise. Let's just take snapshots of the VMs, make sure we protect disk, and make sure that we protect storage as well. But this is the same approach. But these applications are radically different. So, what about all of the critical configuration across the rest of your application, the dozens of services that make up? These services are left without the same level of protection. Whether it's CloudFormations, whether it's Lambda, whether it's IAM, KMS, VPCs, it doesn't matter. They have critical configuration data, and people are maybe manually backing it up, but the majority of that data is unrecoverable, or that configuration or those files, if there's a deletion, if there's a form of scenario. Now, why does this all matter? Well, this is something that we can never forget when it comes to public clouds, when it comes to any SaaS application, but especially the public cloud. Every single service that you're running to make up your application in the public cloud is still your responsibility to manage from a backup, from a recovery, from a security perspective. What do I mean by this? Well, think of AWS as a parking garage. You are paying the parking garage to keep the lights on, to be able to access the garage and use their services. But what if you leave your window open and somebody steals your laptop or somebody scratches your car? The parking garage takes no responsibility for the contents of the vehicle. As a tenant in AWS and any other SaaS application, you are still responsible for protecting and securing your data. That includes backup as well. And that's not just AWS, but that's across every other SaaS application that you have. If you accidentally delete something, if somebody purposely deletes your information, if you accidentally corrupt, if there's version control issues, it's not on AWS to help you recover. It's on you. They're the garage. You drive the car, whatever's inside the car is your responsibility. That's why it's so important to take a look at the entire application. What are your dependencies? What are the configurations that are critical to you? Because that will make a massive difference in how you protect your data. But let's actually take a look at very common scenarios so that we understand why it's important to back up, why it's important to protect critical services even outside of traditional compute and database. Let's take IAM. IAM is used across every single AWS architecture. Think of an intern or somebody who's asked to clean up some roles in IAM, but you accidentally clean up and delete the role that speaks to the EC2 instance on your tier 1 application. What are the consequences here? Well, EC2 instance loses permission and access to the service. The end user will lose access to the application, and you as an SRE or as a cloud architect will have to go and rebuild that role as well. Now let's take something like CloudFormation. Imagine if somebody overwrites a stack. Well, the application might stop functioning, but guess what? You have to go and rebuild these stacks. When it comes to cloud services, it's not just about the data or the configuration that's lost. It's about having to go and rebuild it, especially extremely well architected environments take time, effort, and energy to configure. But let's take even Lambda. Let's say somebody overwrites an existing Lambda function. Well, once again, there could be application downtime, and you have to go and rebuild that function. But what we've noticed in the world of DevOps and data protection in AWS is people play hot potato with their data. Meaning, well, if this role in IAM is deleted, then I will redeploy the states in Terraform or CloudFormation. And then you ask them, well, how are you protecting CloudFormation? Well, I have some form of inversion control in Git. The state is in Git, so I'm okay. Well, how are you protecting GitHub or GitLab or Bitbucket? And then you hear crickets. So the whole point is we're moving around risk within cloud services, but we're still not truly protecting the state. We're not truly protecting the critical configurations and the functions that make up this application. This is no longer the world of running VMs on-prem and taking a snapshot. This is about making sure that you remove any points of failure and have the ability to restore to production and not have to reconfigure if something happens. But one thing that I want to mention is that there are no enterprise backup options for any of these. Everyone's focused on making sure your EC2 instances, your databases, and your storage are protected, but the rest of the environment is left completely unprotected by enterprise backup. So I want to mention something that's new here at HYCU and something that's our focus. And I'm going to focus today on actually providing you with a demo because that's what's most important, being able to show you exactly how we can help protect applications from build to run. But what do we mean by build to run? Well, you have your production application in AWS. Think of all the services that make up that application. Everything from VPCs, WAFs, Route 53, CloudFormations, AWS organizations, config, you name it. Every single one of those services is critical to your production application, and they must be protected, and they must be recoverable. But guess what? You're using other SaaS applications to be able to also release and manage your services. Whether it's Ansible, whether it's Terraform, or even CloudFormations, you're also relying on third-party SaaS apps to release and to manage these applications, specifically the infrastructure as code component. And then you're also using similar SaaS applications to be able to build these services. Things like Jira, Asana, Bitbucket, GitHub, Trello, you name it. These are all critical SaaS applications that are part of your development ecosystem, that are part of the CI/CD pipeline. Just as I mentioned with losing configurations within your services of your production app, you can also have pretty devastating effects if you accidentally delete a project in Jira or task within Asana or a repo within Bitbucket. The whole point here is all of these SaaS applications that you use that bring incredible scale are also parking garages. You're still responsible for the configuration. You're still responsible for the data. You have to take a look at how to protect it. So with that, let me actually show you how Haiku is able to do this and provide a full demo around what are the recovery points, the full experience of protecting an application from build to run in AWS. Perfect. So let's take a look at what we're looking at here. This is Haiku. Something that I want to mention is at Haiku, we're an enterprise backup and recovery or data protection as a service vendor. We're recognized by Gartner. We have nearly 4,000 customers and are strong within the enterprise. We protect applications on-prem, we protect public cloud infrastructure, SaaS applications, and we focus on having the largest amount of integrations, deep integrations to be able to help you back up and recover data regardless of where it is. But I want to show you exactly what this looks like. How does Haiku help you build an application from build to run? The first thing that we do is actually give you visibility into what are the applications that you're even using in your environment. And what I mean by that is let's take a look at all of the SaaS applications that make up an organization. This is a free service available to you, but it's also part of your management experience. We use your Okta or your Azure AD or Entra ID. You create an API token, and we will crawl through and show you everything that's in your directory and start exposing applications by department. So, for example, today we're going to focus on engineering and all of the services within engineering, but you're able to go and take a look at every SaaS application that's used in your organization and then understand, hey, does this SaaS application have backup and recovery? Do I have backup automation? Am I compliant with this SaaS application that I'm using, like Box or Zoom or Zendesk or Slack, or even within AWS as well? But the point here is with Haiku, you're able to immediately start protecting these applications. We have a marketplace where you're able to simply identify what's a service that I want to protect. And you can simply go and configure that service. So let's grab something like Lambda. I can go and I can configure Lambda and simply add my AWS account ID, and we'll discover all of the services that belong to Lambda. But let's focus on a couple key elements here. The first example that I mentioned is what happens if somebody deletes my rotation key in KMS? Well, we're able to immediately restore that. So what you're able to see here is not only from the key level, but alias level, policy tag, and even key rotation level, you're able from a backup to be able to restore that directly to production. Imagine the consequences of somebody deleting key rotation. How would you reconfigure? How would you build that back? Well, with AWS or Haiku, you're able to restore it directly to production. But let's grab the other example. IAM. What if somebody deletes a role specific to a production app? What do you do? What if you didn't have that role anywhere? What if you didn't have these configurations or these policies set up? Well, with Haiku, you can restore all of those directly to production. But it's not just about these critical services, it's also about infrastructure as code as well. So let's take CloudFormation. You can restore an entire stack, a stack set, even down to specific change sets, templates, and policies. The same thing applies to Terraform. And then from there, you can also make sure you do the same thing from your databases and across all of your infrastructure as well. Not just the services, but of course, being able to perform file level restore from your instances as well, and even be able to perform cross regional recovery as well, and even being able to protect your S3 buckets. This is about resilience across your entire environment. But how does it work? Well, you add your AWS account ID, and then you build a policy. And in that policy, you could define, hey, for IAM or for KMS, this is not a lot of data, but it's very critical data. Let me define this. Let me define my IAM policy. Let me make sure that I'm taking a backup and a copy. I like to take a backup every hour of this, and I like to retain it for months. But here's the kicker. Most people think, okay, well, now I'm storing all my IAM data in Haiku. But that's not the case. We are a storage orchestrator. We do not store your backups. You choose where that storage goes. And what I mean by that is you're able to go in and simply assign your storage target. That could be in Amazon S3, Google Cloud, or other S3 compatible storage like Wasabi. But what this means is that all of your critical services, your compute, your infrastructure, are all being pointed towards Amazon S3, your Amazon S3. So you always have a copy of the data in your control. So the entire point of Haiku is being able to simply restore into production, never having to script again, never having to manually configure and rebuild services, simply being able to restore into production. But it's not just the applications within your production services in AWS. It's the applications that you use to manage them. For example, take something like Jira. Jira is a SaaS. It must be protected. With Haiku, you're able to restore specific projects or all the way down to the issue, custom issue, and subtask level. The same thing applies to Confluence. The same thing applies to what we do within Asana. And we're even releasing Git repository backup as well to help you protect every single component of your DevOps workflow. So the point with Haiku is you're able to simply automate the entire backup process, always understand the health of your backups, the health of your compliance, and you know for a fact that recovery is always one click away directly to production. So if somebody does mess up, if there's a corruption, if there's something more malicious, you always have a safe copy in S3 to recover from. Now, as I mentioned, there are so many critical services within AWS and outside of AWS that you use to make up these modern applications, your modern DevOps ecosystem. And SREs are the ones who are getting the call every day now when there's something wrong. They have to go figure out how to reconfigure. They have to figure out how to back up, how to recover. Usually it's done by scripting, but that's a very complex world. Imagine doing that across all of the services that you protect. That's why Haiku, our motto and our mission, is to be able to protect all of your data anywhere. That's explicitly protected by Haiku and always recoverable. This is just a sample of the 50 integrations that we have within our marketplace across traditional SaaS that you would use within IT, but also SaaS within DevOps as well. Critical cloud services, deployment, and even things like Jira, Okta, Notion, Typeform, you name it. The focus here is to protect your data regardless of where it is. But what I can ask you to do is simply test it for yourself. It's easy for me to show you a demo, but what about your environment? What about actually trying it in a sandbox? What about simply trying it for an EC2 instance or an IAM role or even a Lambda function? So what I asked is you can visit protege.haiku.com. You can create an account from here and you can access Haiku for free. First of all, you get that visualization service, rgraph, that I showed you, where you can map out your entire estate. You can get that for free, and you can really see how many SaaS applications do I have? Are they protected? What's my risk profile here? That's a free service available for you. And then, whatever it is that you find, whatever the cloud services that you choose to protect, you simply go to our marketplace, and you have 14 days for free to try whatever you'd like from that marketplace. So the whole point here is give it a shot. Uh, Try restore for yourself. Imagine having to protect all of the SaaS applications, all of the cloud services within your entire ecosystem via scripting. It's not scalable, and it means you will spend a lot of your time simply keeping the lights on. With Haiku, backup should be 5 minutes a week. So please create an account, take a look, and I would love to provide some help and get you started. So with that, I want to thank you all for your time and your attention today.